Welcome into the Source Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network. Very excited to bring on my guy, the great white shark himself, Alvin Brooks III. Man, what's going on?
No much. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you, Jack. Appreciate you, Shawn.
Well, I guess let's just kind of take you back a year, last spring, where so much was going on in your life, and you see the reports, and I'm sure you heard from Coach Drew himself that he was visiting Lexington. Wife was visiting Lexington, taking that job seriously. He turns it down, so you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm making the move there, or however that's going. He doesn't take it. Mark Pope takes the job, and then he calls you, and then you end up following him. So just what was that kind of transition for you like, and just kind of deciding that Lexington was going to be your next home?
It was a huge moment of uncertainty. I think in college basketball, you want the more stability you have, the better for your family. And so, the moment that it was announced that Coach Cal was going to Arkansas, I remember going to my wife and saying, something may happen. And so there was a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, out of respect for Coach Drew, as a staff, we kind of gave him his space. But, to be transparent, I remember calling a recruit and telling them, hey, I'll be calling you back tomorrow. I don't know if it'll be me saying, hey, this is Coach Brooks from Baylor, or me saying, hey, this is Coach Brooks from Kentucky. And so, it was pretty 24 hours was kind of uncertain because Coach Drew and his family, we kind of gave them their space, and we didn't know much. To be honest, I was following everything that y'all were putting on Twitter to kind of see what was going on.
So a year later, are you starting to feel more like a Kentuckian? Like, have you fully, has it reality set in that this is your permanent life now?
Yes, it set in a long time ago. I think when I'm a coach's son, so I've kind of been around it my entire life. So, my biggest thing was my family, making sure that they were comfortable, and I can adjust because I'm around staff and around players, so I can adjust a lot faster than my family can. So they were great. They had a great year. So, I think now we're all adjusted.
Shawn, if you want to jump in.
Oh yeah, Coach, now that you've been here a year and you look back, and it's been 4, 5, 6 months since the season ended, does what you all accomplished in year one, does it sit well with you from where you all were when you all first got here to reaching a Sweet 16? And I know you all want to achieve more, but when you look back over that first year, what are your thoughts on how you all performed?
That's a great question, Shawn. I think obviously the goal is to win a national championship at the end of the day, but love wins. I have a great friend of mine, Amir Abdur-Rahim, just passed away. He was the head coach of South Florida, and he had an interview after the game where he say love wins. And the team last year really loved each other. And so I think if you look back at what they accomplished with 0 points, 0 minutes coming back from a team, they did some things that have never been done before to reach the Sweet 16. And, the injuries that we had, and for them to battle the injuries and still perform the way they performed. I love the fact that we had that group to go to battle for us every night.
And I guess, you go into a season and you're recruiting, and you're, even the last portal class where you have no, you're just selling a vision. You don't have anything to say, hey, this is what this will look like at Kentucky. You can say it's what it looked like at BYU. Here's what it looked like with me at Baylor. But you never know until you know. How much different is it to recruit, the portal, obviously this past spring, recruiting high school right now that you do have a full year of, success, tangible success in hand as you make these phone calls that you were talking about?
It made a big difference. It's like you said, we had a vision of what we wanted to look like. And now you actually have a tangible product. And, to have 2 guys that were drafted after 1 year, I think that's a big thing to show that, hey, you come in, we can help develop you at the same time and win. and you have a chance to still accomplish your dream. Because at the end of the day, every student athlete is coming to Kentucky to play in the NBA. It's our goal while they're here to make sure that we focus on winning number 9. And so we want to make sure that, great business if it's a win-win situation at both parties, and our job is to make sure it is.
On that note, real quick, just going back to that last portal class and all of them just kind of trusting your all's gut and saying, hey, we don't know what it's going to look like. It could be an absolute failure. It could be the best success any of us have ever accomplished. What does it say about that group for them to kind of have that buy-in without having that tangible success and just kind of trusting the vision?
I think the fact that, we have a great staff, and we have a staff that everyone has been successful at previous places. And so when you're able to show that when we come together, we can help one another achieve big things. And, Coach Pope had a lot of success. Coach Pope had a lot of success here at Kentucky as a player. And he was a part of a team that had 9 NBA players and won a national championship. And so our goal is to make sure that we could try to reciprocate that. I know it's a different time now, but at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that we're elite at everything. And when we go in homes, we want to say, we want 9 or 10 starters. And that's the thing. I think national champion teams have 9 or 10 starters. They don't have 5.
Coach, y'all had such a short window to put that first roster together. And I've always talked over the last year that it was Mark Pope's brand. It wasn't Mark Pope's Kentucky brand, because you hadn't been able to see what it looked like at Kentucky. Has it helped a year later being able to show film of what it looks like in Lexington at Kentucky? It's not BYU tape. It's actual footage of what guys did wearing a Kentucky jersey, that they can maybe see what they're going to do offensively, see some things and some schemes that you're going to do defensively, that you've got that Kentucky tape to match up with what you're trying to sell now.
Oh, it helps for sure. I think anytime that you have, I always like to say facts over feelings. So last year we felt like this was the vision. This year is facts by showing the vision. And so it's definitely facts over feelings, and having an opportunity to show our guys in the Kentucky uniform performing at a high level, and then also making sure that the volume is up as loud as possible so they can hear our fellow family members screaming after every big play.
In terms of personnel, is this kind of what you want the future to look like? Because the first one was obviously we got to kind of raise the floor as quickly as possible. We got to get these super seniors that can win right away, and we trust them to win right away. What do you kind of hope the long-term goal, personnel goal is going to be in terms of 5-star freshmen, in terms of player retention, and then in terms of hitting the portal hard?
That's a great question. I wish I could tell you the answer, but it's college basketball, college sports in general right now is in a process of being molded. It's like I don't know if you may be too young to play with Play-Doh, but they used to have something called Play-Doh back in the day. But
I know what Play-Doh is. I'm a 2-year-old.
But I think college basketball right now is Play-Doh. And so right now it's not a finished product. So to say what we want the roster to be, I think it could change tomorrow. I think everybody right now is in the process of trying to figure out even what is our cap with revenue sharing, and making sure that there's no more lawsuits that's coming behind this to even take away that.
And what's the value of having guys that have Kentucky experience, like Ortega, BG, Trent, and all those guys that have experience playing at Kentucky? Did you see the value of that through summer practices? Yes,
it's a huge value, because they know what we're looking for, and they know how it should look. I mean, Coach Pope calls it a Kentucky cut. And when he says a Kentucky cut, that just means that you're cutting at an elite level. And so they able to show through their actions what a Kentucky cut is. And now everybody else that watch, they know what a Kentucky cut is. So I think an underrated person that did that for us last year was Jackson Robinson, because he came in and he knew the offense like the back of his hand. He knew the defense like the back of his hand. So he knew it better than even us as coaches. And so I think this year, with another year under the belt, I think not only them, but our staff, we have an idea of what it should look like so we can help a little bit more earlier.
I guess just kind of dig into the weeds of, revenue sharing and the Play-Doh that you were talking about. Do you find it easier to recruit now that you have some type of framework, some guidelines to work with compared to what the Wild Wild West it has been the last couple of years? Like, do you feel like Kentucky is at an advantage with the current setup? As I know it could change tomorrow, but as it's currently laid out for you guys, do you feel like Kentucky has a pretty serious advantage there?
I think, I think our administration have done a great job to give us an opportunity to compete for a national championship and win a national championship. So it definitely gives us an advantage to have an administration that's helping us and behind us. And, at the same time, we just have to find the right student athletes, because even, with certain numbers, it still may not, another school could come in and offer a bigger number. So, you want to find the right student athletes that wants to win a national championship and be an NBA player while playing in front of the best fans in the country.
And you mentioned winning a national championship, and you have won one. What is there an area that you'd like to see this upcoming roster be better at that maybe the first one wasn't, that you think makes a difference in winning 6 games in a row in the NCAA tournament?
I think obviously we have to compete better on the defensive end. We have to make sure that our defensive field goal percentage is a lot lower than what it was, especially the last couple games. And then we want to make sure that we're a better offensive rebounding team. And I think one of our strengths last year was guarding the 3, and one of our strengths last year was defensive rebounding. And obviously one of our strengths was making threes. We made the most threes in Kentucky history. So we want to try to continue the strengths that we had from last year, but also improve on the things that we could have done better last year.
And when it comes to rebounding, I know there's always been a lot of talk, and I know Mark Pope talked about it last year about wanting to get a specific number of 3-point attempts up. And I know that you didn't quite get to that mark consistently a year ago, but when you look at this roster that you all pieced together, I think the athleticism pops off the page to me, and you're going to grab more offensive rebounds. So is that an area where you want to get more threes up because you're probably going to get more second chance opportunities just because of that added athleticism?
I think we want to get threes up no matter what. but yeah, we're going to shoot. We're going to shoot threes no matter what team we have. But so it's because we know we're going to shoot, we have to do a better job of getting offensive rebounds when we miss. And we want to try to get a chance to get a second shot and a third shot and a fourth shot, fifth shot, even if, take up to 9 shots. It doesn't matter. So we want to make sure that every time we shoot, we have an opportunity to get another shot, because the team that get the most uncontested shots normally have a better chance to win.
AB, there were a lot of fan questions about just how the portal board is set up for you guys, and high school as well. But when you attack a specific portal class or a high school class, what do you look for? How do you build your big board to say, okay, this kid might be a top 5 recruit, but he might have some character flaws, but I do like that, this top 45 kid has, these winning traits. How do you kind of go about building out a recruiting board as, kind of the lead great white shark on the recruiting trail?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you have to have talent first. So we build our recruiting board based off of talent. And, that's from watching film, that's maybe coaching against them. And then after that, now you try to build into getting to know who they are as a person. And so, we've actually had some very, very talented student athletes that we told no last year and this year. And so, having talent is not the answer. You have to have the right talented guys, because say if we don't get the right person, like, we had a couple student athletes that went to schools in the SEC. They maybe beat us once, maybe twice, But if they come in and they the wrong student athlete, they'll beat us every day. And so it's our job to make sure that we pick the right student athletes.
I'll follow that up. Is there a recruiting win to you that, again, not saying that one kid is more talented than the other, like you like the kid more personally or whatever, but a recruiting win that felt more in the moment of, yeah, we needed that one, like the most important one for you in either of these last two recruiting cycles? What was kind of the one that when it kind of came through the fax machine finally that you said, yeah, we needed that one? That was a big one.
I would say Lamont Butler. Lamont Butler was,
I like that.
He was kind of, though, like when we first got here, we didn't have many people on the roster. And so I think, once you have a point guard that's elite, I think other players will want to play with that point guard. And so I think having Lamont kind of gave us an opportunity to let other players know that, hey, we have a winner with us. So now we need other people to join so we can win.
And staying on that point guard subject there, what have you seen from Jalen Lowe in summer practices and leading the team and the things that he can do to kind of make this team go?
Jalen has been great. I mean, he's a lot more vocal than I expected him to be. He shot the ball extremely well. He shot the ball like he's capable of shooting it, and I mean, he's fast. He can make plays for others, and he's a leader. And so he's had a great summer. So I'm looking forward to him building off of that and making sure that it continues to having a great season.
And because I know BBN just has been drooling about just the situation, the circumstances, the timeline getting him here. But Andrea, what has that been like to finally get him on campus, to get him around the team? And I know, maybe just some early workouts, whatever. I know official practices don't start till later this month, but just what's it been like to kind of get him along with the guys that you've seen for 8 weeks over the summer? And what do you expect of Andrea this season?
We have some unbelievable guys because you cannot tell that he hasn't been here. Like he's fit in already. It feels like he's was here the previous 8 weeks. And so he's fit right in. From the team retreat to practices, and he's very talented. He's a very talented player. And so for his size, he could do some things that a lot of people his size can't do. And so obviously he's just 1 week. And so now he has to do it another week and another week and another week, but he has a lot of talent to work with.
Why are those team retreats so important for not just Andrea and the welcoming him in comfortably to the States, but for the rest of the guys to become Kentucky's team? Why has that been a big point of emphasis both summers that you've been here?
Like I said earlier, love wins. And so when you spend time with each other, you have a chance to be connected. And so love is kind of a connection. And so the most connected teams win, the most teams that love each other win. And so retreats give you an advantage to be able to build the start of loving one another. And so I think that's why that's a huge advantage for us.
I want to take it back to the summer practices just a little bit here. Like, what is the focus of that short window that you have together? Like where you get these guys on campus, you've got that window to practice, and then you have some time away from team practices. What are you as a staff trying to focus on implementing in that short amount of time that you get in the summer?
This summer, I think our focus was making sure that we was in elite shape. And so we had some conditioning tests that we didn't do the previous season. And it was really tough conditioning tests. And it was something to help build our guys' toughness, but also allow them to get into elite shape. Then after that, we really focused on offensive rebounding, and we focused on contesting every shot. And so that was kind of the three main things that we focused on this summer. And I felt like we got better in all three.
Maybe there are a lot of fan questions about the shark, the great white shark. Where did that come to be? How did you become that? And like, what's the story behind that one?
Well, Kobe Bryant, stole it from Kobe Bryant. He was playing one-on-one against the rapper Bow Wow friend, and they were playing for a wager, and he bet the guy that he would beat him going to 11, and he gave him 10 points and the ball. And Kobe still ended up winning the game. But in the process of it, after he scored a bucket, he looked at the guy and said, it's a lot different swimming in the water with a great white shark than seeing him on the Discovery Channel. And when he said that, I was like, whoa, like that has to be real. Because long story short, I watched Discovery Channel, but I remember being in Florida with my wife, and one of our sons was like testing over a little pier, and there was some baby sharks that people were catching. And me and my wife kind of had had a little talk about if he would have fell in, what would have happened. And, you know, my heart would have been racing, but I would have had to jump in there, even though I knew mama was shark, mama shark, daddy shark, grandma shark. Everybody was probably down there waiting on me.
I love that. You speak just kind of the ball of duty and the Godfidence, and you were kind of the king of kind of the catchphrases of last year's roster. What was your favorite that you came up with, and do you to this day have enough leg room? I had a lot of fan questions about that.
Well, I don't know if I have a favorite. I would say, you know, God gives me ideas and I just kind of roll with them. And so I don't know if I ever have a favorite. I just, you know, whatever works, I feel like, you know, that should be the favorite. But, you know, it's about helping these guys, you know, not just on the court, but off the court. So whatever stuck with them to help them moving forward with life, I would say that's my favorite. But personally, I don't personally have one. And, you know, actually, September 3rd, tomorrow is, well, 2 days, is the beginning of recruiting. So I have leg room coming soon.
Oh, we love to see that. I'll transition into fan questions, but Shawn, before, if you have one more while I come up with a couple.
Yeah, I've got one. I asked Jay Billis this last week, but I want to ask you since you're inside those walls. But Mo Diabate, Denzel Aberdeen, two of the more guys that I paid attention to in the off season that you added to the roster, just because they've got championship experience, they've got a championship pedigree, they've been to Final Fours, one's won a national title. How important is that to have on this roster? Those guys that were ingrained in roles at successful programs, now making the transition to here, and they played a role at those previous stops, but is there so much more to their game that they can showcase here that maybe they just didn't get a chance to at those previous places?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is growth. Every player, every coach has to continue to grow. And so they both have taken a step in growing, and winners win. And so you have to make sure that you recruit winners in order to win. And they come in, like you said, with winning pedigree. And so they know what it takes to win, and they're putting in the work to win. So we're blessed to have them. They've been a pleasure to coach this summer. They're very competitive. And so the level of practice goes to a different level, especially when they start talking to one another if they're on opposite teams. So we definitely blessed to have them both here.
And I'll ask this too, having obviously those guys being SEC guys, you got a lot of looks at them. And I know Mo played very, very well against you all last year. When in this area of recruiting with the portal, you just never know who's going to go and whoever's going to enter it. But when you pull that scouting report apart and you look and a guy goes in the portal and you're like, man, that guy had a lot of success against us. Is that an area and a tool of recruiting that you can use nowadays where you've actually got the eye test with those guys a couple of times?
Oh, yes, that helps a lot, because you know how big they actually are, you know how fast they are, and you also looking at how many winning plays they're making without the basketball. Mo made a lot of winning plays against us last year without the basketball, and that's something that we remembered, because all we have to do is not only remember it by hurting our heart, but we also have the scouting report on paper and on film to be able to show, like, hey, this is what we felt you were elite at, but this is also some things we tried to take advantage of. And so now with the things we thought we could take advantage of, we feel like we could help you get better at that.
We'll go to some of the KS board questions. Snowman says, how did they decide who recruits whom? And then we could say, are assistants assigned overall responsibility for specific areas with defense, game prep, or, in-game assignments, but also, do you kind of eye a recruit and say, that's my guy? Or how do you guys go about doing that?
I think it all depends on who had a relationship with who. So it's not like a specific, we have a staff that have a lot of relationships. And so we try to recruit as a family a lot of times. And so there's multiple guys that talk to different guys, but for the most part, if someone has a previous relationship with the AAU coach or the high school coach or the agent, then we'll have that person take the lead. And then if maybe somebody knows the agent, but another person knows the high school coach or the AU coach. And so we'll have two people recruiting them. So it's not a rhyme or reason. It's not like the old days where you have this region, I have this region, don't touch my region. It's not like that. It's kind of more like figure out who had the relationships and then let's try to make sure that we could get them to join the family.
GUU boy says, if you were a young kid about to get out of college, how would you go about getting into coaching at a high level in today's industry? And who is one coach that you've never coached against that you would like to coach against?
Great question. I would say repeat the first one because I got stuck on who would I like to coach against.
If you were a rising coach, how would you get into the industry? What would be your advice to get your foot in the door?
I don't think there's a specific way to get into the door. I think there's more than one way. My dad was a coach at Texas A&M when I began to coach, and I started in junior college. I thought I should have started at Texas A&M with him, but he wanted me to start in junior college to learn how to be a coach overall and not just a recruiter. So it's not just a specific way. There's a person that told me this. He says there's 3 R's that you want to make sure that you get into coaching. And while I look for this, I'll tell you who I would love to coach against. But I would have loved to coach against Nolan Richardson.
Oh, I like that.
And the reason is because he's one of the few head coaches that won a junior college national championship as a head coach and a Division I championship as a head coach. And I'm one of the few assistants that have been a part of 2 national championships in junior college and 1 in Division I junior college. So I would have loved to coach against him. But as far as getting into coaching, the first one, he need to find somebody, have a relationship with somebody that can help him get into the business. The second R is results. The results that he have will keep him in the business. And then the last one is respect. Respect will get him paid in the business. And so this coach said this at a clinic in New Orleans, and I wrote it in my notes because I was like, man, that's very simple, but relationship to get you in the business, results to show that you belong in the business, and then once you gain respect, you'll have an opportunity to stay in the business.
And on that note, just with your dad and just the relationship you have with him and how you guys have worked with each other, against each other, and molded each other kind of, growing up together in this sport. How cool has that been? And, idolizing him and his craft and kind of taking some of the bits and pieces from that and becoming your own man as a coach.
It's been something that was priceless. I never wanted to be a coach because I actually seen him as a coach. I tried to run away from it, but he's someone that I talk to every single morning. And so when I first got to Kentucky, it was difficult because we're an hour ahead. And so our routine was it was broken up. And so now we're back on a routine to where he wakes up a little bit earlier, and I talk to him every single morning, and it's he's someone I can lean on for any and everything. And I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for him.
That's awesome. Do you have time for a couple more?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Let's see. What's the biggest difference you've seen in approaching high school recruiting now with the advent of the portal? Just in today's general high school recruiting, what's the difference?
Well, I think the biggest difference is not every high school student athlete have an opportunity to be seen anymore. I think once they made the rule that you could transfer and play right away, I think it kind of went away from the majority of high school athletes. You still have the elite high school players, and you still have coaches that are prioritizing high school. But overall, I don't think. I think it's definitely hurt high school student athletes.
Yankee Cast says, for both offense and defense, what is the main way that this year's team will look different from last year's team?
I think we may create a little bit more turnovers than we did last year. I think we do have more athleticism, and so we have the opportunity to create more turnovers. So, obviously, I think the pace, we want to be the same, and hopefully we can make the same amount of shots as we did last year. But I just think the speed and overall quickness of the team will be a little bit different.
Devin Hunt says, what's the difference between life as a UK assistant being under a magnifying glass than maybe how life was at Baylor, where you're not recognized everywhere you go?
I know at Baylor, I had my welcome to Kentucky moment when I was thinking Indianapolis, and I was just going to watch somebody play, and then I turn around and you walking right behind me. And I was like,
it's me.
I was like, Jack, where you going? And you said, I'm following you. I was like, oh, this is different. So I used to just go watch people and try to find sleepers. I can no longer do that because it's going to be reported.
I was not expecting that answer. What's the difference? You are the difference. You are a thorn in my side. Oh, I love that. We can wrap up with this one, unless Shawn, if you have another one. Without giving up anything confidential or specific, were there any teams that Mark Pope or you personally seem to have a little extra intensity for, as in we cannot lose this one? Like, was there a game that you guys were super invested in? And I know every game you had to treat as the same. Didn't matter if it was a non-conference, mid-major, or the number one team in the country. How did you kind of balance that? And was there one that you kind of had circled on your calendar a little bit more?
No, I think Coach Pope is like more than anybody I've ever been around. He talks about the big game is the next game. And so he actually expresses that a lot to our guys. And so if it was, he never showed it to us. He really treated like every game like it's the biggest game of the year. And he would say that to our guys, no matter who we were playing, or if people felt like we were expected to win by a certain amount, it didn't matter to him. He always, as he called it, flipped the switch and made sure that that game was the biggest game. And so for me, at the end of the day, it's always going to say W on one side, L on another side. And we always want to be on the W side. So the biggest game is always getting a W.
Is there a team this year that you're, an event that you're excited to be a part of? Maybe not like, hey, we're putting a greater emphasis on this game, but, going to Madison Square Garden, some of those kind of things that come with being a coach at Kentucky. Is there anything this upcoming season you're excited to be a part of?
Yes. It's actually, I'm excited for the opportunity to have a chance to compete again in Indianapolis. Like that's the goal. Like we lost there last year. I've been blessed to be a part of winning a national championship there in 2021. So like I have the logo saved in my phone. And so that's what, at the end of the day, that's what I'm focused on.
That there's no other question needed. That was the perfect way to end this thing. AB, man, you're the best. We really appreciate you, and just it's so cool to be a part of this transition. And I know being a thorn in your side a little bit when you part of that transition. Well, I'm working on it. We're trying to figure that part out. But man, it's an absolute pleasure, and we're excited for year 2, just as excited as we were for year 1. So thank you for being a part of this.
Thank y'all for having me. Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Jack. And I know y'all have a tough job. You have a responsibility to give information to the most invested fan base in the country. And I like to call them the most invested family members in the country. And so, that's a tough job that y'all have, but thank y'all for all y'all do to make sure that our program continue to stay elite.
Well, we appreciate your time, man. And we look forward to following you guys along this season.
Thank y'all.